Good morning. Welcome to Watershed. We're so glad that you are here on this Labor Day weekend. As we begin this morning, would you stand and let's sing together? I could just sit and wait for all your goodness, to feel your presence. I could just stay, I could just stay right where I am and hope to feel you, hope to feel something again. I could hold on, I could hold on to who I am, never let you change me from the inside. I could be safe, I could be safe here in your arms and never leave home, never let these walls down. You've called me high, you've called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, love. You've called You lead me, Lord. I will be yours, oh, I will be yours for all my life. I will be yours, oh, I will be yours for all my life. I will be yours, oh, I will be yours for all my life. So let your mercy, I will be yours, oh, I will be yours for all my life. So let your mercy light the path before me. 'Cause you have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, love. You have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, love. You have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, love. You'll lead me. You have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me. You lead me, love. You lead me, love. You lead me, love. We are leaving crumbling buildings full of dust, full of judgment. We are leaving violent teaching from those who refuse to learn from the best of us. We are leaving crumbling buildings full of dust, and they're full of judgment. Oh, we are leaving violent teaching from those who refuse to learn from the best of us. We are seeking a holy healing. It's full of hope and it's full of justice. And I've got a feeling that we're in the middle of it. I've got a feeling she'll see us to the end of it. We are leaving crumbling buildings full of dust and full of judgment. We are leaving violent teaching from those who refuse to learn from the best of us. We are seeking a holy healing. It's full of hope and it's full of justice. And I've got a feeling that we're in the middle of it. I've got a feeling she'll see us to the end of it. We are leaving crumbling buildings full of dust and are seeking a holy healing gate, full of hope and it, full of justice, and I've got a feeling that we're in the middle of it. I've got a feeling she'll see us to the end of it. We are seeking a holy healing gate, full of hope and it, full of justice, and I've got a feeling that we're in the middle of it. I've got a feeling she'll see us to the end of it. God, this morning as we come in and have a few moments to catch our breath, a few moments to still our hearts and our minds, God, may we be reminded of the hope that exists around us, the hope that's in every breath. May we be reminded that there are others around us going through the same thing. Taking breaths, inhaling, exhaling. May we take these next moments as an opportunity to bump into the divine. God, we thank you. We love you. In your name, amen. You can be seated.
Wasn't working, but you can have this one.
Watershed, how are we doing? Woohoo! Well, my name is Dominique. I am on staff here at Watershed, and I am so happy to be here in this space with you. Happy back to school for those who have students that went back to school. My daughter is in the 5th grade. She started this week, and hallelujah, we're back to a rhythm. But for those of you who are new to Watershed, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for coming into these doors. We have a connection card for you to fill out. So if you follow the QR code, it's going to take you to a form. We would love to know who you are, how did you find out about us, and how we can plug you in. I'll be available to answer any questions. We also have some of our staff members. We'll be right in the very back of the auditorium towards the end of service, and we will love just to get to know you. And for those of you who've been coming for a while and you've never filled out this connection form, this is an invitation for you to do that as well. So that way we'll just get to know you more and get you connected with a lot of amazing things that's happening here. So this morning we are ending our series Outcome, and we get to hear from the one and only David Roberts, but hold pause. We've got some events that's coming up that we will love for you to know about. So the first one is a book drive. We are partnering with Promising Pages. They are a nonprofit organization, and we are collecting books now until September 15th. We're collecting books for ages birth through high school. We have a barrel that's right outside of the auditorium, and so you can get new books, or if you have gently used books around your house, bring them with you every Sunday until September 15th, or you can just let one of our staff team know, and we'll coordinate a time for you to come throughout the week. Secondly, Friday, September 27th, here at Watershed, we are hosting Flamey Grant and Ivy King No Trauma Tour. This is pretty big because, one, this is her last tour in Charlotte. She's a very famous singer, songwriter, drama queen, drag queen. And she's going to be here doing a show. So this QR code is going to take you to get tickets. There's only a few tickets left because she's a big deal. And she's going to have people from here in Charlotte and people that are not local. So doors open at 7:30 and the show starts at 8 p.m. So if you want to be a part of this fun show, go ahead and get your tickets. Next, we have What Makes You Bloom book club starting up this Wednesday, September 4th. What Makes You Bloom is a book by our dear friend Kevin Garcia, and they decided to do a book where you're cultivating practice, connecting with your defined self. So there are still a couple spots left for this book club that's happening here at Watershed for the next 6 weeks from 7 to 8:30 this Wednesday. And lastly, Watershed, thank you so much for being an open, just lending your hand for your time, for your finances. That is the definition of generosity here at Watershed. There are many ways that you guys give generously to just support what we're doing here as a community. But one of those ways that you can do that financially is by donating to Watershed. We greatly appreciate your support and your giving on a week-to-week basis. We have people that are coming here experiencing a new, renewed relationship with God and others. We've got partnerships that's working with justice and liberation for the marginalized people. And lastly, we've got people who are coming from spaces that have been shown and they're no longer accepted there. And so we get to create that opportunity for them to find belonging here at Watershed. And so your giving supports all of those things that we're doing. And we thank you in advance for those who are giving your time and giving financially. Here at Watershed, you can give one time only, or you can become a recurring giver. And we just thank you for your support in that. So next, we're going to pass the peace. This is an opportunity for you to stand up, greet someone around you. My challenge to you is to look at someone while you say hi and tell them, what's the highlight of your week? What's something good that happened for you this week as we pass the peace? Welcome to Watershed.
Miss what I have. I think about that a lot. Two funerals in my head. I wanna go back in time, like some sci-fi storyline and pull a single thread without fear or consequence. I wanna raise the dead. I wanna live. I wanna live oblivious to pain. I wanna feel unfazed, unchanged by change. I want flowers to bloom without rain. I know better than to believe that I could bend the rules, but God, I wanna try. Tip the hourglass on its side. Remember when we were young, afraid but brave enough to swim away. Imagination's big enough to dream a better life, unburdened by the bloodlines. I wanna change the tide. I wanna swim. I wanna swim to the other side of pain. I wanna give in to the mercy of change. I want flowers to bloom after rain. I wanna swim. I wanna swim to the other side of pain. I wanna give in to the mercy of change. I want flowers to bloom after rain. I wanna swim. I wanna swim to the other side of pain. I wanna give in to the mercy, the mystery of change. I want flowers to bloom after rain. I want flowers to bloom.
Good morning. Y'all didn't see that song coming, huh? Yeah. Neither did I when I first heard it. I'll get to that in a second. My name is David Roberts. Okay, I'll stay here. My name is David Roberts. I'm one of the pastors here on staff. If you're new with us this morning, welcome. I mean, welcome to the rest of you as well. A little less exciting, but regardless of how long you've been with us, we would love to say hi to you. Myself and some of our other team is going to be in the back, like Dominique said. At the tail end of the service, we'd love to say hi, put a name to a face, especially, but not only, if you're new. Two other quick reminders. Next week, we're kicking off a brand new series, Skin and Bone. It's going to be awesome. We have some, well, they're not really guest speakers because we consider them part of our community, but we have an awesome lineup of speakers for this series. We're really excited about it, so don't miss it. And I'm not just saying that in like a generic, like, you should be here, don't miss it sense. Really don't miss it, because next week is when we are changing our service time. So there is a genuine risk that even with your best of intentions, you might miss. Actually, you would be early is really what would happen, because we're going to be bumping things 30 minutes to 10:30 a.m. But, you still need to get up early, because we are also going to be kicking off something that we are calling, and I cannot believe we're calling it this, we're calling it Adult Swim, but specifically, which I realize Adult Swim is not like a provocative reference. It's like something that happens in pools, but I think of the animation Cartoon Network thing. Anyway, but then within the context of Adult Swim, which will be every Sunday at 9 a.m., I'm going to be leading an experience called Shedology starting next week, which is the opportunity to really explore, maybe even at a deeper level than Preface, for those of you who have been through Preface or are going through Preface right now, at an even deeper level, just sort of explore the skin and bones of Watershed. And we're going to kind of get into not just like who we are, but kind of the why of it. So if you've been here for any length of time and you're like, I like this place, I like the people, I like the vibes, I like the music, but I do not understand what's going on here. I will do my best to clarify that, or at least make more clear why it is so unclear, because that is a feature, not a bug of who we are. So join us for that, and if you can't make this round, we are going to be doing a lot of things on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. going forward, including Preface. So for those of you who have been wanting to go to Preface but haven't been able to do a midweek evening one, this will be your opportunity for that in about a month and a half as well. So there we go. All the announcements, I think, except for one surprise one at the end that Dom is going to return for. So, yeah, we are wrapping up this series, and I sent Austin, our singer guy, a text probably about 3 weeks ago. I was in Salt Lake City, Utah, which is where I grew up. I wasn't born there. I don't claim where I was from, where I was born, but I do claim Utah, which would surprise some people, but it's beautiful there. And it was the first time I'd been there in about 5 years, pre-pandemic. And maybe this would surprise some of you who know me better. I don't know. I'm a pretty sentimental, nostalgic person, and so I have, it's a ritual, it's a practice that I do anytime I have the opportunity to go back to some place from my past. And ideally it's done alone. Sometimes I have to bring my family, but I love them so much. I just like to go back and see places that were pivotal, maybe even without me realizing it at the time, but places that were routine for me, that were important for me, that were meaningful or formative for me. And the three main places, there was this brief stint in Houston, but we don't talk about it. Didn't know you all loved Houston. The three main places I claim are Arizona, where I lived before coming here of course, and then Utah. And Utah is where I lived from age 7 to age, I think it was like 21 or 22. So not going to be most of my life much longer, but at least so far, mathematically speaking, most of my life. And yeah, so I just drove around. I went to, drove by the school that I went to, the house I grew up in, different parks that I used to live in. My parents don't live, they're split, but neither of them live where I grew up, and so much to my dismay, I can't get into my old house. I've thought about, is there a non-creepy way to do this? I don't want to be like the origin story of some horror movie or something like that, but haven't done it yet. Did go into my old church. That was interesting. But yeah, and it's this uncanny thing, I don't know if this is going to make sense, but I'm going to do my best to explain it. So I am driving into my old neighborhood, all right, and I immediately begin remembering dreams that I've forgotten. And what I mean by that is, when important places in your life show up as the settings of dreams, and sometimes they're not those places, but in the dream they are, and sometimes they are those places, but in the dream they aren't. And then sometimes you don't remember at all. Well, as I was driving through, I was having this uncanny feeling, kind of holding in tension, the alienating and the familiar, and I was remembering what I think were dreams. They weren't actual memories. Of course, I had those as well. And it was just this really ecstatic, like outside of myself experience. And against that backdrop, I had actually, it was when I was flying out there, I discovered that song, Hurt, that Austin just played. And it's a band that we share a love for called Sleeping at Last. We do a number of their songs here, and it's a brand new, and it had just come out like that day. And I listened to it, and then it was on like repeat. Like, you know that episode of The Office where Michael Scott just keeps replaying that James Blunt song, but he only listens to the free preview? But like, I mean, I pay for Spotify Premium. I had the song. So just on repeat over and over and over again. Like, it was the soundtrack to my nostalgia, the soundtrack to my reminiscing. And lyrically, I mean, it's a hopeful song, but it's a sorrowful song. It's a song about regret. It's a song about pain. It's about loss, but about what can maybe come on the other side of that. And as I was reflecting on my life, my past in this place of origin for me, it's like all of these like paths not taken, and they're not necessarily paths that I regret not taking, but they're just different outcomes that could have been, or as I get caught up with people who I haven't seen in years and years, and kind of hear how their life is gone, and sometimes it's expected and sometimes it's unexpected, and I don't know, I just sat with the weight of all of that, in my time there, and kind of knew that this series closing talk was coming, and so some of these ideas just started to form. And this idea that I really fixated on, that I think is a through line throughout this series, or at least kind of some of the stuff that myself and the rest of the teaching team were talking about as we were crafting this series, is this idea that meaning, purpose, the why of life. There can be these moments of disappointment, of unmet expectation, of loss, and this temptation in those moments to try to discover what it must mean. Or perhaps if it seems as if only we had made this choice, or if only this other thing had happened, almost as if maybe there is a true meaning, there's like a true purpose or track, and somehow we got off of it, and can we get back on it? And we can get caught up in these cycles or circles or kind of loops of what if and regret and all of these things, and that's relatable. I mean, I don't want to put that on you. I relate to that. But at the same time, I think it takes for granted this assumption about how the meaning of life works, as if it's all been sort of laid out, and one of two things we take for granted to be true, and just spoiler alert, I'm going to propose a third. There could be more, but we don't have time for more than three. The first two is that like everything is playing out the only way that it could possibly play out. And it is our job to find the meaning hidden within it, as if God has sort of like preordained everything, and the only real thing left for us to do is sort of experience it wash over, like the river of time just kind of washing over of us. We're a passive participant, only except to discover the meaning that's been hidden within. And then the other kind of, I think, predominant taken for granted way of thinking about these things is there is a ideal sort of like right way, and kind of like Marvel multiverse style, like we can kind of get off of it, but then there's a sacred timeline of sorts that we are trying to kind of get ourselves back onto, because that's where the real meaning of life is. And what I kind of want to leave us with in this series is that maybe that's not the best or only way to think about meaning. Meaning is not something discovered and therefore possibly missed, but something made, something co-created divinely with each other, with God, as we at times, by necessity, defiantly resist the ways that the world, our experiences, even despite maybe their best intentions, other people sometimes steal that meaning and that purpose from us. So sit with that. There's I'm going to say something provocative and then kind of, like run away from it. And that is, I think it is very difficult to find like a single harmonious through line in the Bible. Many of you who have been here a while probably have heard at least me say this, and maybe heard it said at Watershed, but the Bible is at times full of contradiction. And this is the second time I'm going to use this euphemism this morning. That's a feature, not a bug. It is in dialogue with itself. Different folks who are experiencing the highs and lows of life and making sense of the divine in their own world are talking to each other, sometimes in real time, sometimes over decades or centuries, arguing with each other, learning from each other, revising what those who came before them had said based on new information. And so it's not so much as these contradictions undermine the value from a spiritual perspective of the Bible. It is precisely how the Bible inspires us and could be considered inspired in the way that those who came before us are making sense of what it means to be human, and by extension, what it means to be divine together. And so, even though there might not be like one singular through line in the Bible, one thing that I have found meaningful, one thing that has been meaningful for me, is seeing the ways in which characters in the Bible, both Old Testament, Hebrew Bible, and the New Testament, navigate sort of this interplay of expectation, disappointment, unexpected, et cetera, et cetera. And I originally had like 8 or 9 different passages. I was like, we're going to go through all of them. I am going to prove to you all that, that this is a thing. And I was like, I don't have time for that. Sometimes people complain that I didn't use any Bible at all. So a little bit that was a response to you. But no. What I ended up settling on was sort of a series of 3 passages at the end of Mark, and I could have gone with some of the other Gospels because they're in all of them, but at the end of Mark and the beginning of Acts, where some of the key players in Jesus' own story, and Jesus himself, were sort of navigating. We're going to kind of go through them quick-ish, and then I'll sort of unpack and make some observations. So the first one, I believe, is in Mark chapter 11. And so this is what, this is tail end of the book, tail end of Jesus' story, coming into Jerusalem, the triumphal entry, many have known it called. That's not in, like whoever wrote Mark, probably not Mark, didn't write this is called the triumphal entry. Chapter 11. Like we added all that stuff afterwards. It's just a little FYI if that's news to you. But we're picking up, obviously, it's verse 9, a little bit into the story, and it says, Jesus was at the center of the procession. All right, and the people all around him were shouting, "Praise God, blessings on the one who comes in the name of the Lord, blessing on the coming kingdom of our ancestor David, praise God in highest heaven." So Jesus came to Jerusalem, and he went into the temple, and after looking around carefully at everything, he left because it was late in the afternoon. And then he returned to Bethany with the 12 disciples, and some of the other gospel accounts, it says he went to sleep. Pause here for a second. So, most of you, I assume, have heard this story. Those of you who didn't probably didn't realize you were walking into a church this morning. This is a go-to Sunday school story. There's even a cool thing that sometimes you could do with felt boards and animations, because there's in one of the more expansive gospels, Jesus talks about rocks crying out if the people don't say things, and there's a lot going on here. But at the root of it is something that I think most of us miss, at least in the way that this was presented to us growing up, and that's the people had a certain expectation as to what was about to happen here. See, most of us usually, by the time we hear this story, we already know how it ends. And so we sort of have a different kind of expectation in mind. But at the time, in the moment, this was exactly what they were expecting their conquering Messiah to do. So they were expecting Jesus to come in, and this is it. Everything has been building to this moment. He's going to get to the temple, and he's going to pull out a sword, and it's on. We are going to get rid of the Romans, and this is just going to be the beginning of the campaign to restore the people of Israel to their rightful place at the top of God's hierarchy, and it's going to be awesome. And what does Jesus do? Well, first off, he shows up on a donkey, which is okay. Didn't see that coming, but we'll roll with it. But he gets up there, and he looks around, and functionally he shrugs and goes and takes a nap. He has a siesta because it's the afternoon already. So just not much later, both in real time and in the passage, is when we get the fateful moment where Pilate, the Roman governor, is offering the people a choice between which presumed insurrectionary do you want back? Do you want Jesus of Nazareth, or do you want Barabbas? Interestingly enough, Barabbas means son of the Father. Who in Barabbas was literally what they wanted Jesus to be. Barabbas was a failed insurrectionary, but he had at least tried to be one. He had been captured because he tried to overthrow the Roman government. Jesus was not that. And yet, based on their disappointment from earlier, this is why the people were so incensed and demanded that Barabbas be freed and Jesus be crucified. All right, so in this instance, we're seeing a profound, visceral response to unmet expectation, to decades, centuries of buildup towards a presumed right way of liberation. It's going to be this way. This is where meaning is found, and Jesus, God's representative, fails to meet it. Fast forward. I know you guys know most of the story, so won't belabor it. Mark chapter 16. After the crucifixion, Saturday evening when the Sabbath ended, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome, I'm probably pronouncing her name wrong, I apologize, went out and purchased burial spices so they could anoint Jesus' body. Very early on Sunday morning, just at sunrise, they went to the tomb. And on the way, they were asking each other, who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance of the tomb? But as they arrived, they looked up and saw the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled aside. When they entered the tomb, they saw a young man, not an angel, clothed in a white robe, sitting on the right side. Other translations call him a youth. They rolled in and there was a youth. Youths. Yeah, some of you know that reference. We're shocked, but the angel said, see, it says angel. It's a bad translation, not an angel. I'm not going to get into why, just trust me. We can learn about that in Shedology. You should come. I can't just sort of let that go unaddressed. But don't be alarmed. You're looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who is crucified. He isn't here. He is risen from the dead. Look, this is where he laid his body. Now go and tell his disciples, including Peter. Remember, Peter had a bit of a run-in with denial a couple days prior, that Jesus is going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there, just as he told you before he died. The women fled from the tomb, trembling and bewildered, and they said nothing to anyone because they were too frightened. Then they briefly reported all of this to Peter and his companions. Afterwards, Jesus himself sent them out from the east to west, an unfailing message of salvation that gives eternal life. Amen. So that little end part where it says, after the word frightened, that was added later. The original ending of this passage was, the women fled from the tomb, trembling and bewildered, and they said nothing to anyone because they were too frightened. Roll credits. This is why I love the book of Mark. Cliffhanger ending. And also unexpected ending. So there is a lot of unexpected stuff going on here. So first off, the women are at their lowest point. The disciples of Jesus are at their lowest point. The dudes aren't even bothering to show up. And something unexpected happens. So first little observation that we're going to circle back to in a moment is sometimes this whole unexpected thing goes both ways. So before we're even getting into the notion of meaning making, I think it's important to remember sometimes that in the same way that we can't always see the unexpected obstacles, unexpected losses, unexpected challenges that interrupt our lives, so too in those lowest moments, do we not have all the information? And many times something else unexpected happens. Something new breaks in. This is what the biblical notion of apocalyptic means. It means revelation, to reveal, to pull back the veil, pull back the curtain of reality and show what's really going on. I know in my own life there have been times when it's like, and it can be the weightiest thing in the world, or it can be the most mundane, trivial thing in the world, but I cannot see past it. And I cannot, in my own power, I try to rationalize things. That's like my go-to defense mechanism, Enneagram 5. There are dozens of us. But we try to get through I can just think my way through this. Can't do that sometimes. More times than I'm comfortable admitting, actually. And in those moments, sometimes the saving grace is something that I just didn't see coming, that I didn't have a category for, didn't have language for, and then boom, there it is, like a lightning bolt, and all of a sudden, I can't unsee the way I'm suddenly seeing things. Everything is different. And again, that goes both ways. That can happen in the tragic negative sense. And one of the beautiful and also terrible things about this job is you're very aware of that. When it happens in this room, when it happens in our world. I mean, part of the job. And by the graces of the internet, you too are invited into that. We just know what's going on, the heaviness, the disappointment, the loss, the pain. But again, it goes both ways. And there are times when something new emerges out of that pain, out of that change. At least a little bit, that's what's happening here for these women and then later for the disciples. But then other elements that I think are worth observing. First off, the original ending. Let's just pretend that last part of verse 8 isn't there. The original ending, and it just kind of ends on this cliffhanger. It ends on, even with this good news, sometimes it feels like the stage has been cleared. Where we have this blank slate where all of a sudden it's like, okay, there's possibility now, but possibility at times can be scary. I think that's the scariest thing for most of you when you come to a place like Watershed is you've had a certain kind of certainty shattered, and you're looking for a new and better certainty, perhaps a more inclusive, just, and generous certainty. And unfortunately, that is the one thing, and we are quite open about this, we refuse to give you. Quite happy to give you space, peace, love, affirmation, inclusion, all of these other beautiful things that I don't want to trivialize. But possibility and certainty do not go together. And possibility, said another way, hope, is something that resists sort of the easy lull of certainty. So no, they do not have certainty, they have possibility. And where is that possibility found? It's found back at the beginning. Easily missed detail. Go back and you will find Jesus. He's gone ahead of you to Galilee, which is where all of this began for them. And so they're invited back to the beginning, but they're not the same. Jesus isn't the same. Nothing is the same. And so there is this sense of starting over, but not exactly. This loop of possibility where both the unchanged and the changed, the new and the old, is sort of held in tension. And whether literally or metaphorically, like literally in the sense of me going back and sort of visiting my own origin story, or more metaphorically and just sort of feeling like at times maybe we're being asked to start over, this is a kind of cycle that we experience, that we're called to. This is sort of the foundation, the grounds of the possibility for the sort of meaning making that I was describing. Because I think sometimes when we're having to go back to the beginning, we think, okay, if I just go back to the beginning, maybe I can find the original meaning that I kind of ran astray from. Or maybe if we go back to the beginning, I will discover what was always already there. And I don't want to completely discount either of those. I think maybe there's some meaningful truth in there, but so don't necessarily pit these sort of three options I'm laying out this morning against each other, but I think the one that we often miss is the meaning making. Going back to the beginning, but with new ingredients, new insight, new experience, new community, new loss. It changes things. It's the same, but it's not. And so that possibility is ever present. And then this final passage in the book of Acts, again, should be a familiar story for many of you. So when the apostles were with Jesus, and they kept asking him, Lord, has the time come for you to free Israel and restore our kingdom? So remember, they still don't get it. They're sitting there being, all right, so we did the thing, and then the Romans did the thing, and that sucked. But then you did the thing. And now here we are again, and you seem to have special powers, which seems convenient. Can we now go beat the bad guys? And Jesus replied, the Father alone has the authority to set those dates and time, and they are not for you to know, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you. So he kind of zigs when they want him to zag. You will be my witnesses, telling people about me everywhere in Jerusalem, throughout Judea and Samaria, to the ends of the earth. So at this point, they're like, what? They have no idea what he's talking about. And after saying this, he was taken up to a cloud, and while they were watching, they could no longer see him. And as they strained to see him rising to heaven, two white-robed men, now we have angels. Anyway, two white-robed men suddenly stood among them, and I think we have what they said. Or maybe I ended it there, my bad. Basically, the angels say, hey, geniuses, what are you doing? Why are you staring up? He's not here. Go back and do what he told you to do. So again, let's unpack this briefly. A couple things going on. So first off, they're right back to that original expectation. Let's fight. Let's fight. That's all they want to do. They just want to fight. And Jesus is like, nope, not what we're going to do. In fact, I'm so annoyed with this question, I'm going to Irish goodbye. And he just kind of pieces out. And we'll get back to the Irish thing in a second because I've got more melancholy for you. But no, he pieces out. And then they're staring up into space, and then the messengers, the angels, the two white-robed men, show up and are basically like, hey, why are you so surprised? Like, he told you this. But sometimes, ever been in a situation where, like, you've been told the same thing over and over and over again, but you just couldn't hear it. You didn't have the ears to hear it or the eyes to see it, and then something changes, and now all of a sudden everything kicks into place. It's like when you realize the twist in an M. Night Shyamalan movie back when they were good, and then you watch it later with someone who's never seen it, and you're like, this is going to be awful. They're going to pick it up because it was all right there the whole time, and I just missed it. But no, they're oblivious all the way through because they're not looking for it. If you're not looking for it, you're not going to see it, and so. And then you almost enjoy it even more watching them have the moment. So I'm guessing those angels were having a great time. But no, like sometimes you just don't have what you need yet to discover the meaning, or you don't have what you need yet to make the meaning. Another complaint, to put it uncharitably, sometimes that folks have here is they just want to be told the right answer. And our resistance to giving them that is not so much that there isn't an answer to give, but it's different to just tell you and to give you the opportunity to experience through to it on your own. Sometimes you, and that you is really a we, because we were and at times are there as well, you can't see it, you can't hear it. You don't have eyes to see or ears to hear yet, and there's more that you need to experience, and sometimes those experiences are bad. And don't hear me saying that those bad experiences are somehow good or just or right because they let you have the epiphany later. That's not what I'm meaning. Sometimes the meaning being made is taking those absurd, tragic, frustrating, fill in your negative adjective experiences and almost defiantly saying, no, this does not get to have the last word on what this means in my life, in our lives, in our community. It's a creative act. Another thing that the Bible is clear about from the beginning, even if I don't think this is like the singular through line in the whole collection, is that we are made in God's image. We are co-creators. To bear the image of God is to bear that creative spark, that impulse. And unfortunately, I found at a young age that doesn't mean I can make matter out of nothing. I did try, but shocker, I'm sure, for some of you. But no, but it means we can make meaning. We can't make matter, but we can make the matter matter. Sometimes quite defiantly, sometimes at our lowest moment, sometimes when it really doesn't seem like anything is ever going to make it better again, we get new information. Someone comes into our life, we hear something, could be a song, and all of a sudden, it clicks into view, and we're able to make something new, a new creation out of it. Another word for that is resurrection. And it's crucial. We talk about this a lot here. Resurrection is not a retreat from death. It's not hitting rewind. It's not undoing something bad so that we can now go around it the next time. It is through and out the other side. Different gospel passage, but Jesus bore those scars in the resurrected body. So it's a transcend and include. It's a both and, not an either or. Resurrection, new creation, making meaning amidst these moments of negative outcomes. So I thought about a lot how to land this plane. I'm not always good at landing the plane. Sometimes it's because I think my emotional range, I've said this before, I kind of live in, on a 10 scale, I'm kind of just within 4 and 6 all the time. So, I'm never going to be the person, I can't like raise you all to a 8.5 and then have the band take us all the way up to 10 afterwards. They might take us all the way up to 10 afterwards, but I can claim no credit for that. I digress. Most people probably assume that the way to kind of end this is, at least for me, would be some kind of like nerd reference, and I will humor those of you who expected that. So, but we're not going to end there. So, if there's a takeaway from all of this, it's this sort of juxtaposition, kind of holding in tension the sense that on the one hand, some of the things I'm talking about are inevitable. Whether at sort of the most trivial or mundane, or the deepest, weightiest, most tragic, most meaningful, most life-defining, we're all going to run into this disappointment, loss, unmet expectation. It is probably the one universal of human existence. And so, in this beautiful irony, this one inevitability of loss and alienation, also the one thing that we all have in common, the one thing that unites us. So inevitably at some point we are going to feel so alone. And in a weird way, we are never more together than when we're most alone. Because it really truly is the one thing that we share. And the one thing that, if you follow the narrative of the incarnation and the story of Jesus, it is the one thing that God took upon God's self in becoming truly human. So the thing I'm describing, this sort of aloneness, togetherness, is the thing that sort of unites our humanity and our divinity together. And that sort of defiant sort of yes-and-ness is, I think, what makes it beautiful. It doesn't make it easy, but what makes it beautiful. Now, I could have chosen dozens of examples from a nerd property, but I'm going to go with a well-known one. We're going to talk Lord of the Rings for a moment here, and then we're going to zig where you expect me to zag. But to this day, one of the most meaningful, sort of profound moments in The Two Towers, both the book, but also, I think for most of you, just low-hanging fruit, the film, is, so there's this moment about midway through, towards the end maybe of the film, where, go with me here, the Ents, which are the giant talking tree people. Okay, good. And the hobbits, which are the short pot-smoking people. So the hobbits are trying to convince the Ents to join this conflict, to join this war with them. And the Ents want to sort of just go through life the way they always have, sort of withdrawn, removed, unengaged. And so the hobbits kind of trick the Ents, or at least this main Ent, Treebeard, creatively named, and take them to this part of the forest where, bear with me, those of you for whom this is new territory, the dark wizard Saruman has destroyed much of the forest, and Treebeard the Ent begins to lament, saying that many of these trees were his friends, knew them from nut and acorn, and in this moment, two things happen. On the tragic side, Treebeard experiences something that he did not anticipate, that he did not have a category for. A watershed moment, if you will. He makes a decision. He summons his brethren to war, and the music swells, and they begin to march, perhaps to their doom, he says, but they go to war. They take up the cause of those who are resisting the forces of evil. And lost in this is that another unexpected thing happens, and that Saruman, who thought at this point victory was assured, experiences something unexpected, and those who thought all hope had been lost experienced something unexpected as the Ents kind of join and turn the tide of this part of the battle. It's a powerful moment, but it's not the only thing that came to mind. Some of you notice I'm dressed interestingly today. Maybe you didn't notice. Maybe you're just like, yeah, that's kind of it's a normal thing for David to wear. This is a kit from my favorite soccer team, football team, but we'll call it soccer. Celtic FC, and they're a Irish They're a team founded by Irish immigrants in Scotland. We beat our most hated rivals this morning. Yay us. I'll circle back to them in a second, but there is a couple things I want to say about this. So first off, I think sports are actually an opportunity to see what I'm talking about at a real low stakes level. Might not always feel low stakes, but if we take a step back and at a deep breath, it really is lower stakes than some of the material we've traversed this morning. But sports are the arena where often the impossible is made possible. I mean, most of you who are at least sports fans have either experienced in real time or at least heard about in the history of your favorite team some moment where it seemed all hope was lost. And then you were given new information in the form of, and then until it wasn't. The stoppage time goal, the three-pointer as time expired, the Hail Mary touchdown. These are scoring references for the uninitiated. Sports often is the arena where we get to almost practice this life truism about possibility having the last word and not our expectations. And I think maybe that's the most valuable and moving thing about it. The reason why sports transcend time and culture and inspire us the way they do is because we see reflected in them this truism about life. Now, with soccer in particular, there's this song. Some of you may have seen the show Ted Lasso, so this is where you've possibly heard the song. It's called You'll Never Walk Alone. The song is most famously associated with Liverpool FC. It actually originated as a show tune in the early 1900s, introduced maybe most famously to American audiences by Elvis Presley. Liverpool had claimed it decades earlier, but it really came to mean a lot for them when this tragedy happened at one of their matches against Nottingham Forest decades ago, where, without getting into the details, almost 100 of their supporters died when a stand collapsed. And so it took on meaning for them. For Celtic, they adopted it as their own after a match against Liverpool in the mid-1900s, because for them it represented their experience as a refugee club. Celtic was founded by Irish immigrants and refugees in Scotland who were opening food banks and shelters for Irish immigrants who had otherwise been completely shunned by this dominant society around them. And so from its beginning, Celtic has always kind of had a motto, being a club for all, refugees welcome. It's been a posture of theirs kind of from the beginning. And so for them, this song has sort of become their anthem. Like some of the other teams that have adopted it, it gets played before every match. I remember the first time I actually got to see a match live, I was not expecting to experience this, but the moment, kind of the music changed and all the supporters pulled out their scarves and kind of held them together, and singing in one voice. You hear 60,000 people singing the same song. Well, let me just say, in those moments, you don't feel alone. And the song itself is bittersweet. In the context of when it was written, it's describing a fictitious, but a scenario in which there's a child a child who's lost her parents, and the community is coming around her and basically assuring her that despite this loss, you'll never walk alone. And so that's the sentiment I want to leave you with, not just for this morning, not just for this series, but as we enter into the fall. This series was chosen in part because this has been a hard year, on top of maybe a hard half decade, on top of go on as long as you need to because it's hard. It's an election year. Anxiety is high. There is tragedy going on in our world, and even before we even have the bandwidth to wrestle with that, there's tragedy, I know for some of you, in your own lives right now. There are these moments of loss, and there's really nothing that we can do, I want to suggest, to rewind that. We can't walk it back. Nor do I necessarily think there's value in trying to discover what it really means, as if that was going to somehow make it okay. But it doesn't mean that that's the end of the story. It doesn't mean that meaning cannot be made. And if there is any argument for being part of this community, it's that meaning is best made together. So let this closing song that Austin very generously sung, because he's He's a Manchester United fan, and they're playing Liverpool in they started 3 minutes ago. So thank you, buddy. But it's a beautiful song, and let this be the closing prayer this morning, our closing benediction for this morning, for this series, but for the rest of this year. A reminder that wherever you are, you'll never walk alone.
When you walk through the storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of the Lord. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone, and you'll never walk alone.
Thank you, Austin. Isn't he amazing, y'all? Well, Watershed, yes, give it up for them. Give it up for David Roberts. Thank you, my friend. Well, Watershed, it's been an amazing morning with you. Just a couple announcements. Next Sunday, not daylight savings time, but our service time will change. So come at 10:30. If you're signed up for Shedology, make sure you're here around 9 or 8:45. And if you also have a middle school or high school student, they're gathering this evening from 5 to 8. It's a great opportunity for parents to meet, get to know each other, and there's going to be some games being played as well. Now, here's a couple of things. We will love to meet you in the very back. So if you want to hang out, get some more coffee, get some more tea, you're more than welcome. But also, can you do me a favor and stack up chairs? So it is the beginning of the month, and we usually just stack up chairs for our cleaners. And so just stack them up against the wall. And thank you all for coming to Watershed. Have a great week.